Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad abdu rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord, the cherisher and sustainer of all worlds and all systems of knowledge. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship besides Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad, to whom the Quran was revealed, is his true servant and his messenger. Dear brothers and sisters, again we greet you on this great day of Ramadan, the second day of Ramadan. And we're going over the second juz. This juz covers in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, a chapter of the Quran. It goes from ayat verse 142 to verse ayat 252. In this juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to the people of the time and the accusations they made when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, changed the direction that he was praying in from the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem to the Kaaba in Mecca. What's important is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, highly glorifies, he concludes this whole issue by instructing and indicating that the direction in which you turn wasn't the most important thing, but the most important thing was the purification of your soul. And it's important that facing any particular direction, it doesn't do anything for the development of your soul. It only gives you an orientation and a direction. This juz also covers the guidance and the wisdom that Allah has given to us in many matters that are pertinent to our life. And one of it is inheritance, marriage, Hajj, and most importantly, what we're doing right now, we're fasting during the month of Ramadan. It's the only place in the Quran that contains a tremendous amount of detail about this great act of worship. And so we will find that throughout this juz, and even between, in different areas in this surah, in this juz, you will find that the details that are offered in many other commands from God, Allah stresses over and over again the necessity of us maintaining taqwa at all times. And I know we all have heard the story that the Prophet described taqwa like a man going down a path, and each side of the path has thorns, and he takes his stole or his robe and he pulls it in close so that he won't get snagged by the thorns. And that's a wonderful definition of us being conscious, being aware of our surroundings, not only physically but also emotionally, also spiritually, that we should be aware of God in all aspects of our life. In the physical environments that we're in, we have to be conscious of those. We have to be conscious of our attitudes, our emotions, our spirituality during these times. We cannot allow the thorns that will prick us. We can't allow the thorns that are out there to prick us. We have to be aware that there are harmful things in this environment. You have to be aware of those things. So this is one of the important lessons that we will learn during this particular reading in this juz. One of the first ayat in this juz has to do with, there were some weak-minded people among the people of that time, among the Prophet, those in his environment, who was questioning why he was changing the direction that he was praying in. Understanding the context of this is that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his companions had just made the hijrah, meaning they migrated from the city of Mecca because they were being persecuted in Mecca. And so they went to the city of Medina. And on their way, the Prophet, on his entrance into Medina, he stopped outside of Medina in a place where he built a masjid, and that's where he stopped, and he changed. He was praying toward Jerusalem, and he changed his direction toward the Kaaba. This is a very significant event that was happening, because here you have a young community, a newly developing community, struggling to find its way, struggling to get a footing, struggling to build a foundation that they could grow free of persecution, free of oppression, free of attacks. And so they were searching for a way, and Allah was guiding the Prophet to change his direction. And you know, when you're starting off in life, don't we look for a direction? Don't we look for directions that are not like the ones that we had? You know, even in this time of this COVID-19, humanity has been placed in a place where it has to find a direction. It has to get its footing. So imagine Muhammad's community, peace and blessings be upon him, his young community, leaving a persecuted environment that persecuted them. They needed direction. They needed footing. Not only that, but they needed identity. You know, when you're free from oppression, when you're free from persecution, you have to have a footing, you have to have a direction, and you have to develop your own sense of self, your own sense of identity. And African American Muslims and America and African American people in general, we know this. We know that after slavery, we had to get a footing, we had to have a direction, and we had to preserve our identity. And so this is important. This is how we overcome oppression. This is how we overcome the resistance in our life. And the same thing is going to apply with us all, the whole world, and us as people in America. We have to overcome the persecution, or I would call it, or the resistance that we're getting from this COVID-19. We're going to have to get a footing. We're going to have to get a direction, and we're going to have a whole new identity when this is over with. And so during Ramadan, it's a hijrah. It's a migration. It's a migration from where we were before the beginning of Ramadan. And it's an opportunity for us to get a footing. It's an opportunity for us to get a direction. And it's an opportunity for us to get a better or strengthen an identity, to get an identity that will cause our life to grow and expand. And so what we want to talk about briefly as we close is to look at the necessity of really taking note of what this juice is bringing us to. First, we mentioned taqwa. You know, we talked about necessity of taqwa, because that is the thing that's going to be the cement that's going to keep our whole life together. To bring Allah, to bring God into every aspect of your life. And there are verses in the Quran, in this juice, that gives us the rules concerning Hajj. Hajj is a social institution. You know, I know we can't go. We probably won't make Hajj this year because of this virus. But it's God consciousness. When you go to Hajj, those who have made Hajj know that you have to be conscious of God, because Hajj it could be tested, and when you are conscious of God, it helps you to get through that. In this juice, it's gonna talk about the rules of marriage. Marriage has to have taqwa. Without taqwa, the marriage will not be successful. It talks about divorce. Even during a divorce, you have to maintain God consciousness. We all have heard some nasty divorces, But if you maintain the fear of God, and know that God is aware of everything that you do, knowing that God can hear you and see you, then you will go through that process, even if it's something that's so uncomfortable. And we hate to see this happen, but you have to maintain taqwa. Even in the raising of children, the suckling of children, this juice talks about the suckling of a child. If the mother has taqwa, then that child will also eventually grow. If that baby is nurtured, we need to suckle our children on taqwa, And another story that's told in this juice is the story of Goliath. I remember as a young boy, I used to love hearing about this story about little David, the little boy who took his slingshot and took a smooth stone. He had 5 stones, but he took one, and he hit the giant with his slingshot in the head and knocked the giant down. Of course, the great symbolism in the 5 stones, for Muslims, that's the 5 principles of Islam, the 5 pillars of Islam. The first one is what? Is to believe in the oneness of God. And 2 is to establish prayer. And 3 is to fast. And 4 is to give charity. And the 5th one is to make hajj. The first one is the belief in God. And so Dawood took this one little stone and he slung it at the giant, and the giant fell. Don't we have giants in our life? Don't we have intimidating forces in our life? Don't we have intimidating nations, powers on this earth, on this planet? And the only thing that can overcome these giants, the only thing that can overcome this fear that we have is our taqwa, is our belief, and our faith that we should put in God. When you have taqwa, when you have faith and you believe in the oneness of God, that God is all powerful, that God is Allahu Akbar, that He's nothing greater than Him. When you have that one principle, it can defeat all the giants in your life. Brothers and sisters, I pray to Allah that you would take this introductory statements, or these statements to this wonderful juice in the Quran, and apply it throughout your day, and apply it throughout this month, and reflect on that ayat in this juice, ayat 183, that talks about fasting, and say that God says that the reason that He's commanded us to fast is so that we can learn self-restraint. And the word that is used for self-restraint is taqwa. So may Allah bless you, may He keep you and protect you from the evil in this virus and the evil that's in this world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.